Welcome back to another episode of Owning the Weight podcast. I'm your host, Jillian Tedesco, where we talk all things wellness, nutrition, and business. And today I have my good friend and registered dietitian and diabetes educator, Mindy Musselman, on here today. And we're going to talk about the lies that diet culture has been telling you. I thought this would be a fun topic.
This will be a great topic for us. Absolutely.
So let's start off with talking about how has it become so persuasive? What are some of the biggest myths that you feel have like ingrained into our society?
Yeah, it's funny when you stop and think just how much you encounter aspects of diet culture in a given day. You know, we just like walk through the grocery store, and if we would look closer, I'm sure we would have seen in some of the marketing, some of diet culture come through. It's just everywhere. So some of the myths that come to mind are you have to do this particular plan to lose weight. Like there's no other option. You must do this. You can't be healthy and have obesity. That's another big one. It's starting to get a little dismantled. Normal weight loss is 1 to 2 pounds a week. I think it's not necessarily a myth, but it sets us up for some very tough expectations sometimes.
I was going to say, people think that they're not happy when they get that. I'm like, that's a lot of weight to
know.
lose.
Yeah. And somebody's like, I haven't done very well. You know, maybe I haven't talked in a few weeks. And I'm like, well, let's start with, tell me about, let's go through the eating, the exercise. Did you weigh yourself? Yeah, let's check on that. And they're like, yeah, I lost like 5 pounds. I'm like, you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like, just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So that's a big one too, not having like real expectations of how the body actually loses weight, what that looks like week to week on a scale. And another big one is you are a bad person for eating junk food or for wanting junk food. You're a good person for only, quote, clean eating. Assigning like morality to food is a big, big myth, I think, that we get through diet culture.
Mm-hmm. Well, talk a little bit about carbohydrates. I know initially when you cut them out, you can get really good results. Like how does that work out in the long term?
Yeah. And that's one that it's kind of myth and fact. When people do low carb eating plan for the first or second time, maybe even the third or fourth, they usually do lose weight. And one of the reasons is you get some water loss. Carbs tend to follow, or water tends to follow the carbs. So you cut the carbs, you tend to lose some water weight at first. And it does work at first, just like cutting calories in general would work at first. So it can help initially, and then we get in our head, that is the way. For me to lose weight, I must go low carb. So say 10 years down the road, I gain a little weight. I'm like, all right, back on the low carb bandwagon. All of a sudden, it just doesn't work. Like I've been doing it for a month. I'd normally lose 5 pounds by now. I've gained 2. What is happening? And this can go back to just what happens when we go on too low of calorie plans in general and what happens to our body over time. It's also can be ineffective in the long run because it's hard to do forever. Mm-hmm. So if it's an eating plan that's not sustainable and that you can't sustain doing it for the long haul, it's probably going to backfire in the long run.
I feel like that's the number one reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nobody really wants to not eat carbs. Like I run into plenty of people who are like, oh, I could do without a specific food, but carbs as a whole, that's tough. Like that's so many foods,
That's everything.
It's everything. Yeah. And it's a lot of foods that, really do a lot of helpful things in the body too. Like don't get me on the fiber thing again, because I'll go all day talking about fiber.
I mean, not even to mention too, I think like, especially people who have had success with that and then they go off of it and then they go back on because they knew they got results with it. Then they can fall off again.
Yeah.
But then they go back on again. And now you've got this cycle. And so mentally you think, what you think is, this is the only way I can lose weight because I know I've done it before.
Yeah.
But the truth is you haven't kept it off because you really haven't changed your lifestyle.
Because you've just been dieting. Yep.
You're dieting. So.
And you can get some luck, I guess you could say, with it for a certain amount of time. Some people longer than others. Eventually it catches up.
I heard you say earlier, you were saying you can't have, what did you say, weight loss and obesity together?
Yeah, the myth that you can't be healthy and have obesity.
Talk to me about that. How can you be healthy and obese?
Yeah, so obesity is a diagnosis, right? Like somebody goes to the doctor, the diagnosis is essentially looking typically at body mass index, which isn't a great measure, but it is diagnostic for obesity. And, maybe they have obesity, but they don't also have high blood pressure. They don't also have high cholesterol. They don't also have prediabetes. Metabolically, those are all like acquired metabolic diseases. metabolically, they're still healthy. Everything is checking out. Labs look good. They feel good. They're sleeping well. They're handling stress. They just also have a weight that might be higher than what a chart says they need to be for their height. Metabolically, everything looks good though. So it is possible to be metabolically healthy and have obesity. But we do know that obesity is a major risk factor for a lot of those things I mentioned, for these like acquired metabolic conditions, which is what I mainly work with, is people who have these things. Prediabetes, which is insulin resistance. You hear prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, difficulty handling sugar. It's all the same thing. You're just at a different phase of it. So we know that that is a big risk factor. So I would say yes, get those things checked out. Like make sure if you have obesity, that your doctor is doing the basic lab tests, which is going to be like your cholesterol check, your comprehensive metabolic panel that's going to check your glucose, all that stuff. And if everything looks good, great. You're starting at a great point. You can still work on going from a category of obese to overweight if you think, and your doctor says, hey, this is going to help you maintain this health for longer, and it probably will. So it's still something that can be worked on, even if right now it's not causing anything. We know potentially it really could.
You work with a lot of people, and I know a lot of people probably want to come to you and they want to lose weight. And you're dealing with so many other factors besides just the scale. Like you just named off a ton of different health conditions, and there's so many systems in the body that you have to take into consideration. How do you reset somebody's expectations when they're not losing weight week over week, and maybe they're just staying kind of consistent through this process of trying to make a lifestyle change?
Yeah. So weight is one factor, and it's usually not the main thing that we focus on. I try to get them to change the way they're thinking about it. Like if you don't change your mindset around it, you're always going to get dragged back into that same, oh, the scale's not moving, this isn't working. So sometimes that's just having a saying, like, I am treating my body better. I am worthy of treating my body better. Some people just don't feel like, they deserve to have this healthy body. So it starts with the mindset. Like, what can we do to shift the mindset? And then looking at, you could call them a non-scale victory, a non-scale measure, other things that they'll start to see benefit in. The main one people usually start to notice is their energy. I'm changing the way I'm eating. I'm not necessarily as worried about what my weight's doing, and my energy is so much better. So we're looking for those other things that are benefits, sometimes unforeseen benefits that somebody might have. I'm sleeping better. My energy is better. My skin is clear. Like all these things that can happen just from nourishing your body more and looking at like you said, all these systems, they're all connected. So if we're just focusing on the scale, you're probably ignoring some really important systems in your body, neglecting them or making them worse by trying to force that number down so much. So it's really trying to look at the body as the whole picture and focus on some of those other benefits.
Why is the earn your calorie mindset so problematic?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the earn your calorie mindset is it leads to restriction and then binging.
Okay.
That is just such a natural pattern for people to fall into. And then there's a big scale of that, right? Like some people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to just not eat much today because we're going out to dinner tonight and I really want to splurge. And that's all it is. The rest of their week is totally normal. And then there's other people who do that and they splurge that night. And then it's followed by guilt of, oh, I really blew it. Now I'm not going to do anything good for my body for another week. I'll start next Monday. And then there's the very, other end where somebody is restricting and binging to the point of making themselves sick. And then we get into disordered eating. So it's a big spectrum. But if we start in diet culture of thinking like, I've got to earn my calories or, I have to exercise this much and I have to see that number on the, people look at the calorie things on the treadmill. It's got to hit 300 calories before I can get off this treadmill.
So I was going to say, is there some correlation too with like the amount of calories that someone burns during a workout, like fixating on, well, I'm going to burn 600 calories today and 400 tomorrow. So that's 1,000 and like trying to manage weight loss that way.
Yeah, you are totally in diet mentality, right? That's a big sign that you need a mindset shift. Especially because if it's working now, like you're just getting into weight loss and you're focusing on calorie restriction only, it could be working at first. I'm looking at what's your life going to be like in 10, 15, 20 years when you've gone off this restriction, gained some weight back, and now you're trying to do it again and again and again, and it's not working. That's like who I'm looking for. I'm trying to look out for your future self when you're in this mode So I think when people are looking at that whole like calories burn number, it's very misleading because that's a general number. It's not like, oh, hi, Jillian, welcome to the treadmill. We're going to assess your body, your metabolic rate. You're going to like blow into this tube so we can get a really accurate reading. No, it's, a basic equation in that treadmill that spits out a number every couple of minutes on the treadmill. So it's a very generic number that doesn't mean a lot. And what it doesn't take into account, especially for strength training, there's no like, I wish, when you were strength training, you saw like a number. Actually, I don't because it wouldn't matter. But what you don't see from strength training as far as what it does to your metabolism and how much energy you use is that you use energy during that, right? Like last time you lifted weights, right? Probably was a little difficult. You sweat, you burn some energy, use some energy up. What it doesn't show you then is, okay, later that evening, how much energy did your muscles use in building and repairing themselves? The next day, same thing. So I think people miss the big picture if they're just focusing on or calorie burned for exercise, because then they're going to hit that treadmill and run and burn themselves out and get more stress and not see results.
Kind of got to just like trust the process a little bit.
Yes. So most people, I say like, just cover that thing up, like cover that number up. If you're that attached to it, don't even look at it.
I can like recall I have my Garmin that I wear when I work out, and typically in a weight workout, I'll burn 350 to 400 calories. And the other day I was at 250 and I was like, man, that's not a lot. And then I was like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Like I was a little bit shorter of a workout, but it felt great. And I just left. And when you think about 250 calories is not a lot, but it's stacked week over week, month over month in my lifestyle. And it's all going to add up in the end if I'm consistent, like you were saying.
Exactly. Like stop looking at like the day to day. I know calories in, calories out. It's hard for me to even get away from that because it does matter some, right? I can't eat 10,000 calories a day and expect to lose body fat.
Correct.
Probably not going to happen. But to look at it day to day like that, you're really kind of selling yourself short because it matters what you do over a week, over a month. It's like you said, the consistency over time. Things are going to pan out if you're in a ballpark kind of range and you stay consistent with
kind of like the Fit Flavors meals. It's okay if they're all 5 grams.
It's kind of okay to actually give your body energy, especially when you're using so much.
Talk to me a little bit about the guilt that comes with. So if you're someone who's really trying to lose weight, you've had some good results, you're losing weight, but you're like, how am I going to eat ice cream and cake and alcohol again? Like I love those foods, but I don't know how to work them back into my lifestyle. That's cheating. Like how do you get someone to shift from that's ugly? You don't want to be living in that torturous mindset of can't have those things. How do you get them to cross over and say, I can do both responsibly and not feel that shame?
Yes, it's that all or nothing mindset. And so many people have it when it comes to nutrition, but you've got to make a food choice several times a day, every day. And that you're going to burn out on that track and you're going to stop and go back to your old habits. So if you really want to see change, if you really want to do something different, first, you got to accept that you're going to have to do things different. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You can't just keep doing this low carb plan that's no longer working for you. You're going to have to do things different. So you got to accept that first. And then you got to stop when you hear yourself saying, I can't have that, it's bad. Or, oh, I'd really like that, but I shouldn't. Start asking yourself, is that nourishing? Just like ask it in a different way. Is that nourishing or not? Nourishing being it provides my body with something that is valuable that will help me be healthier.
One of the things I did, I remember when I was making my shift out of diet culture, I've been in that for a while, was I remember thinking, just eat the damn potato and thinking it was just straight high glycemic carbs, a white potato. But in reality, I was like, pair it with a protein and vegetables. Now I have a whole meal that's balanced. I'm not going to get the same insulin response if I just ate a baked potato by itself. And I'm going to stay in portion control. And now I have balanced macros and I can eat the potato, no problem. I can eat the potato 3 times a day if I want. You know? And so kind of shifting myself, like you said, away from putting so much power behind the potato to I'm just eating carbohydrates in my balanced meal.
Exactly. Yeah. And the balance of the meal. I feel like women especially will do things like this. They'll be like, well, I'll just have some fruit and maybe like a protein bar for lunch. And then maybe I'll grab, I don't know, something else small. Like I'll just have these couple little things instead of having a meal like that.
An actual meal.
A meal of a potato, chicken, and broccoli is like, that's too much food. That's that's never going to help me reach my goals.
It's so nutrient dense and whole and comes with so many things.
Like, yes, the body will do what you're wanting to do with that stuff. So don't be afraid to eat like a real meal. We think like less. These little things are better when they might add up to the exact same thing as that meal anyways.
I think I had
and it's less satisfying.
Someone on my, I threw something up on my Instagram the other day that said like, what are your health goals? And someone said, I want to snack. I want to eat more nutrient dense meals versus snacking all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's a great one. And just getting away from snacking and even like eating whole food as a snack, like a mini meal, almost like just have another chicken salad or just have some scrambled eggs and avocado and just having those whole foods together they're so filling and they're nutrient dense and sometimes they're not even that full of calories as like processed food.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think we're for some reason, probably diet culture related, afraid to do that because we've been shown through marketing that no, just have this snack. And snacks are really a great brainchild of marketing, right? Like, oh, you're having 3 meals. Why not have 6 a day? And we'll call them snacks and we'll, make them all highly processed. And you need to add that to your day and your grocery list and your budget. Whereas if you asked any of our grandparents or great grandparents, they didn't really snack. There were not a lot of snacks around.
They had breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, if they did, maybe potato chips came along and, they had a little bit of them, but it's just, that's changed so much. So snacking can be okay. It's just like we're misreading like what food is. We're saying that meal is too much, but all these little snacks should be fine.
How do you manage good and bad with like the language that clients, even cheat? That was one I was like, I'm not using that anymore. Like
I've never loved the cheat meal.
It's
always
so
hated that.
Common. But there's like 1% of the population that can do that and it works for them.
Yeah.
Maybe 2%. And then everybody else, it doesn't work for them. Like it's just it's a mind fuck.
Mm-hmm. It's that restriction and binge thing too. It can go back to that so easily.
Like, why does it have to be a cheat meal? Why can't it just be something that you have because you want it?
Yeah.
And, like cheat meal means indulge. This is the only time.
Yep.
I'm going to
better go for it.
I got to wait till next week again.
Yep. What does that do?
So many rules.
Yes. And it for me, it's okay. How about we learn like 80-20? Maybe you need to have that 20% every day versus like the once a week you've been doing. This is why it's not working. You're going back to that same, I can only cheat once a week. And you can do that for a month and then...
Or maybe 2.
Yeah, maybe 2. Yeah, really good, strong 2 months. And then you go back to your old habits for 4 months. And then you try this again and repeat.
It's the on again, off again, on again, off again.
So you're right. Like 1% of people probably be fine with doing that forever. But that's 1%.
Yeah.
That's not everybody.
Yeah. And more... when you work with a lot of your clients, do you feel like a lot of them, when they come to you, are in that diet culture? Is that common?
Very common. Yeah. It's hard for us not to, I try not to say like, oh, that's good to eat, that's bad to eat. But even saying that is still kind of ingrained in diet culture.
Even with my kids. So I'm like, how do I tell them I don't want them eating McDonald's and candy? So I try to say fun food. I'm like, hey guys, that stuff's fun. Yeah. It's not all the time. It's not going to nourish our bodies. And, if you want some ice cream, put something good in your body first, and then you can have the ice cream. My kids will want ice cream a couple days a week.
Yeah, it's teaching about balance. Like, there's nothing wrong with teaching about balancing those foods. And like, okay, this is what this food does for your body. Oh, this food really doesn't do anything for your body. Like, let's try to eat something that does do something, helpful for your body more often. There's some kids literature on, healthy foods, and they call it like go slow and woe foods. Kind of the same, kind of like red light, green light, concept.
Gotcha.
But like the go foods are like, yep, have lots of these. The slow foods are a little bit. The woe foods are like, let's think about it.
And, I have to say, like with having 2 kids, like the way culture and society are today with food, we are so far from reality right now. And it's like, it must feel overwhelming for moms because they're so used to the convenience items and like, I want my kids to buy school lunch. I do not want to pack lunch every freaking day. Plus 2, they're going to be exposed to some shit and they're going to have to try new things. And, they're more likely to try it because all their friends are there eating it. And my kids have actually started eating different foods because of school lunch. But
and there's different influence around them. They're peers.
Yeah, but like even the school lunch has got a bunch of crap in it, and it's decent, but it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, they get Chick-fil-A and Papa John's every week. I'm like, why? So they always buy on those days.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But I'll be honest, packing lunch for Vincent and Sal has gotten a lot easier, more so for Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely maturing. He just turned 11. But like I packed him the other day, turkey from Whole Foods on a sandwich with some cheese. I did the sandwich bread. I found some whole grain that had 3 grams of protein and 2 grams of fiber a slice.
Mm-hmm.
Strawberries, carrots.
Simple.
And then I made him a ranch dip out of sour cream and Greek yogurt.
Yeah.
And I was like, I feel good about this lunch.
Make this for myself.
Yeah. And so it's a give and a take with the kids. I'm sorry, I always go back to this because it's so relative to home, but like you're never going to change overnight. So if you're struggling with anything with your diet, just understand these things take months, sometimes years. Yeah. And I know that can sound like, but guys, we're talking about your life here. Like a diet is a short-lived thing. A lifestyle change is forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's your nutrition, and it doesn't have an end. It goes until you die.
This is just the new you. This is just the way you're going to do things. And at first, it's going to feel very awkward and uncomfortable, like any change.
So just don't try to change everything overnight.
Yeah.
Like, be realistic.
Yeah. And you're totally right. I feel for the moms out there because even as I scroll through Instagram and see all these different people posting things, not saying any of them are wrong. It's overwhelming. Even as a dietitian, I'm like, oh my gosh.
There's a lot.
Like, wow, if I didn't have any background in this, I would be very confused of what to do. And no, too, like you could do everything perfectly right. Like whatever right is, if, God came down and was like, you did everything right. You followed the exact nutrition plan that I would have recommended for you. That was the most healthy thing you could possibly do. And something could still go wrong.
Yeah.
Like it could. So same thing with kids. Like you could do everything, whatever quote right is, and something could still happen. It's hard. So try not to be too perfect in it.
My pediatrician told me years ago, he's like, if you can get one solid meal in your kids a day, you'd be surprised, but that is great.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, because kids live malnourished all over the world and they don't get food. If you can give your child one good meal a day, I was like, oh,
yeah.
Okay. Took some pressure off me. And I'm like, 2/3, that's a win.
Yeah.
So 2 out of the 3 meals are, nutrient dense. That's really good.
That's a really good point.
Let me ask you this. How do you recognize in yourself if maybe you have some habits or things that you're doing that are not, what do I want to say, the healthiest, maybe be considered as disordered eating?
Yeah, it's a very gray line, right? Like there's diagnostic criteria for diagnosing eating disorders. So of course you can always go to a counselor, go to your doctor and ask for those questionnaires essentially, or an eating disorder clinic. They will usually do that as part of an intake assessment. They'll just go through some questions and say, yeah, it sounds like maybe you're leaning towards bulimia or whatever the condition it could be. But just things you can kind of ask yourself, am I going down a road that maybe I don't want to go down? Because maybe I could still turn back and do things differently. So I would say one of the big things that I hear from people is if I go out to eat with friends, there's no way I would order pizza in front of other people. So if you're in the mindset of you would never eat what you deem to be bad, unhealthy foods in front of others, you're going down that path. It doesn't mean you'll go to a full-blown diagnosed eating disorder, but it's not a path you probably want to stay on. I would try to get off that path. So what some people say, I love pizza, but I would never order in public. And sometimes it's kind of in a lighthearted, joking way. But I'm like, all right, well, why is that? What? Let's talk about that alone. That can be a whole session right there. So if you're afraid to order food in front of others that you think is unhealthy, and especially if then you will go and get that food and binge on it in private. If you're like, well, yeah, then I get chocolate to myself and I can't stop. Those are disordered eating symptoms. Those are things you probably want to work on more than you want to focus on the scale weight. So somebody's coming to me with that, we have got to prioritize your mental health around food more than what the scale says right now.
Anything else?
Those are pretty big ones. Overeating in private is a big one. Binge eating is probably way more common than what people think, which could be diagnosed as binge eating disorder. Many people meet that criteria and never get diagnosed.
Have you ever heard of, one of my friends told me she had this. I didn't even know it was a thing. She's actually a younger girl in her 20s. She said she had a disorder of trying to eat too healthy.
Yeah, like orthorexia.
That's what she called it. I'd never heard of that.
Yeah, I'd say it got added to the diagnostic criteria later than all these other ones because it's become so common now.
Break this down for us.
So this is, say you go to a restaurant with your friends and you deem nothing on the menu to be clean. I'm using quotes.
Yeah.
Clean enough for you to eat. So you just don't order anything. You drink water, maybe with lemon. But if the lemon's not organic, you're like, don't put it in there.
Or would you like order, everything on the side and not saute my veggies in this and get, like XYZ?
It could be that. Like if you say, okay, I can only eat things. So orthorexia is typically more of like a clean eating. It has to be like organic, free of dyes, like all those things.
All the time.
To an extreme where you will not eat if those aren't available. Whereas if somebody's ordering like dressing on the side, no cheese, no nuts, like no high fat foods, that might be more of like anorexia because you're trying to make things as low calorie as possible.
Gotcha.
To make them acceptable.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So just maybe recognizing those things.
Yeah.
What do you recommend if someone's like, damn, that's me?
That's me. Yeah. I would, most areas. So St. Louis has a couple of local eating disorder clinics, which have inpatient and outpatient and even virtual options. So I would call one of those places. You just Google like eating disorder treatment in your city and call them and go through the process of the assessment and see what their recommendations are. It's not like they're going to come and take you from your home and put you in there. You have to agree to go. And not everybody needs inpatient treatment. I think that's a misconception. I'm going to have to go somewhere for like a month or two. Can't do that. No, a lot of them have
that's more
virtual.
Extreme. That's more extreme.
Yeah, that's somebody who it's taken over your life. And if you know food has taken over your life, if you think about food 24 hours a day, like you literally dream about food, you probably really should call.
Oh, like, oh my gosh, I just ate. How long till I eat?
Yeah.
By next time.
Yeah. How much do I got to work out to
what do I got to eat?
Off?
How many calories can I eat?
When can I get alone to binge again? Like these are things, 20, like definitely most of your waking hours are spent thinking about food. Call a clinic.
Dang. Wow. Okay. Final question. What are some practical steps listeners can take to start viewing food as nourishment rather than a reward or even punishment?
Yeah. I think we kind of villainize food, poor food. We like give it such a hard time. It's just trying to feed us. So I think just start trying to think of like food as food. Like it's just food. Like it's just an apple. It's just a donut. Just what it is. Start trying to take away, that morality from it. That's number one. And then just learn what your body actually needs in a day. Maybe you just don't have a clue how much energy your body requires to do all the things it needs to do. So you can talk to a registered dietitian, can get a plan going like here. And maybe you start with how much calories do I need in a day? Maybe you have no clue and you don't even know where you're at to begin with. It might start with that, or maybe it's, how much fruit do I need? How much vegetables? How much protein? And just looking at the food groups that way. So learn exactly like what does my body need in a day, maybe for my specific goals, and start practicing that. It is possible to just look at food as food. It could be just that. Sometimes it's like more exciting. Some days it's, the hodgepodge meals we put together that they're still good.
The hodgepodge. They're not, it's like, what do I have in my fridge that I can pull together to make a balanced
I do
meal?
that all the time.
You're like leftover spaghetti.
Yeah.
And then you find this like fish in the back of your cooler. And then you're like, okay, I guess I got to
spaghetti fish,
warm up some vegetables. Yeah. Here I got an avocado too.
Yeah. Spaghetti fish with avocado coming soon to Fit Flavors near you.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you for all these tips. I mean, if you're getting confused and maybe sucked into this diet culture, just know that there is definitely a way out. There is a healthier lifestyle on the other side, and it is very, very possible for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Mindy.
You're welcome.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in. This podcast is brought to you by Fit Flavors, your first resource in healthy eating. We will catch you next time.